A Sherpa with 40 Everest summits physically stepped in front of Jade Mercer and blocked her path, and she filmed it, laughed, and posted it to TikTok. That clip got 2.3 million views before her body was ever found. But what did the Sherpas see in her eyes that morning that made them certain she was never coming back? Welcome to Alpine Finale, where we unravel the most disastrous events in history. If you want to support the channel, consider subscribing and liking this video. Jade Mercer's GoPro was recovered 11 days after she disappeared. The last clip showed her laughing into the camera at 27,400 feet, while a Sherpa named Dorje Tamang physically blocked her path with both arms spread wide. She ducked under his left arm, winked at the lens, and kept climbing. That clip had 2.3 million views before her body was ever found. To understand how it came to this, we need to go back 6 weeks earlier. Jade arrived at Everest Base Camp on April 3rd with 4 camera bags, a ring light, and a brand sponsorship contract that required summit footage by May 12th. She was 29 years old, had 1.2 million TikTok followers, and had climbed Kilimanjaro 2 years earlier. She had never used supplemental oxygen. She had never worn crampons on technical ice. Base camp at 17,600 feet sits on the churning Khumbu Glacier, and the smell of diesel fuel and glacier ice fills the air constantly. Prayer flags crack and snap in the wind like small whips. Jade filmed all of it. She called it her office. Dorje Tamang had summited Everest 41 times. He was assigned as her lead Sherpa by the guiding company, a mid-tier Nepali outfit called Summit Path Expeditions. Within 3 days, he was worried. During her first acclimatization rotation to Camp 1, Jade moved too fast and arrived breathless with a throbbing headache. The standard protocol was to rest a full day before descending. She descended after 4 hours because the light was better for filming in the afternoon. Dorje told her partner and fellow climber, a 34-year-old engineer from Colorado named Brett Okafor, what he had seen. Brett later recalled that Dorje pulled him aside the first week and said she was not listening to her body. He said her lips were the wrong color at Camp 1. Brett told Jade, and she laughed it off. On May 1st, the expedition leader, a veteran guide named Paul Hewitt, gathered the team and recommended a delay of 48 hours. A low-pressure system was moving in from the northwest. The weather window was closing faster than expected. Jade sat in the back of the dining tent with her phone out. When Paul finished, she raised her hand and asked if a 48-hour delay was truly necessary. Paul said yes. She smiled and said she would think about it. She did not think about it. That night, she messaged her brand sponsor and confirmed the original timeline. She posted a video to TikTok from inside her sleeping bag. The caption said, "Summit Day is coming. Nothing can stop this." Dorje watched her leave the tent. He said nothing. He had already seen enough. The metallic taste of altitude hung in the cold air, and somewhere above them, the mountain was already deciding. 1 minute, 46 seconds. They left Camp 4 at 1:07 in the morning on May 9th. The temperature was negative 38 degrees Celsius. The wind was manageable at first, maybe 25 kilometers per hour, just enough to make the cold feel like needles on any exposed skin. Jade filmed the start of the climb from her chest mount, the beam of her headlamp cutting through the darkness above the South Col. She was moving well. For the first 2 hours, everything looked fine. By the time they reached the balcony at 27,600 feet, the wind had changed. It came in hard from the northwest, exactly as Paul Hewitt had warned, spiking to 70 kilometers per hour in sudden gusts that hit like a wall. Dorje stopped and held up his fist, the signal to pause. Jade was already pulling her phone from her down suit pocket. She wanted the shot of the pre-dawn sky. A gust hit and she fumbled. Her supplemental oxygen mask cracked loose from her face, and before she could grab it, the wind took it sideways. She caught the strap, but the seal was broken. Cold air flooded in. She was now above 27,000 feet, breathing thin, unfiltered air, and she had been doing it for 30 seconds before she even told Dorje. He fixed the mask quickly, but the damage was already starting. At that altitude, the body does not forgive delays. Dorje checked her eyes. Something was already different. He radioed base camp at 4:14 a.m. The response was broken and faint. Then the radio went silent. The batteries, chilled past their functional limit, had died completely. They pushed on because Jade refused to descend. 20 minutes later, on the traverse above the balcony, she clipped onto the fixed line and pulled. The anchor above her had worked loose overnight, weakened by the same wind system Paul had flagged 4 days earlier. The line went slack. Jade lurched sideways on the ice and only stopped because Dorje lunged and caught her harness with both hands, driving his crampons into the slope. They were both still. For a moment, neither spoke. She started laughing. Dorje did not. Within the next hour, HACE began. High-altitude cerebral edema happens when fluid builds in the brain, and at this stage, it is invisible from the outside at first. Jade started repeating questions. She asked 3 times what time it was. She asked Dorje if they had already passed the balcony. She stopped recognizing landmarks she had studied for months. A climber descending that morning, a Swiss guide named Marco Feller, passed them near the southeast ridge. He later told investigators that she was looking at Dorje like she had never seen him before. Her movements were very slow. He asked if they needed help. She waved him off. She said she was fine. She was not fine. Night fell. The temperature dropped to -42. Jade sat down in the snow and did not get up. Dorje did not leave her. That is the first thing every investigator noted in their reports. With no radio, no way to call for help, and temperatures dropping past anything survivable without movement, he stayed on that slope through the entire night, pressing his body against hers to slow the heat loss, rubbing her arms, speaking to her in Nepali and English, and sometimes just making sounds because the words no longer reached her. He had his own oxygen. He shared it. By 4 a.m., his tank was nearly empty, and he was running on willpower and 41 summits worth of knowing exactly how close to the edge a body could go. At first light, a second Sherpa named Pasang Dawa had already begun climbing back up from Camp 4, carrying a spare oxygen cylinder and a sleeping bag lashed to his pack. Base Camp had registered the radio silence at 4:14 a.m. and raised the alarm within the hour. Pasang reached them at 6:22 a.m. He found Jade slumped against Dorje, her face the color of old wax, her breathing shallow and wrong. Her gloves had come off at some point in the night. 3 fingers on her right hand were hard and white to the first knuckle. Pasang later told the investigation team, "When I got to them, Dorje looked at me and I could see he had been crying. His tears had frozen on his face. He just said her name. That was all." They got the oxygen mask back on her, and within 8 minutes, her breathing deepened slightly. It was the first good sign in 6 hours. Pasang radioed base camp with the working unit he had carried up. The call went through. A fishtail air helicopter was dispatched from Lukla and made first contact with the South Col at 8:40 a.m. The pilot, Captain Rajan Thapa, attempted a landing at 26,000 feet in wind gusts still pushing 55 kilometers per hour. The first attempt threw the helicopter sideways and he pulled off hard to avoid the ridge. He came back around. The second attempt lasted 4 seconds before a gust hit the rotors at an angle that made the airframe shudder violently. He aborted again. On the third attempt, he managed a skid touchdown long enough for Dorje and Pasang to load Jade onto the stretcher and push her inside. The door closed. Captain Thapa later said, I have flown high-altitude rescue for 19 years. That was the closest I have come to not making it back. She was flown to the Himalayan Rescue Association facility at base camp and then transferred by road to a hospital in Kathmandu. Her core temperature on arrival was 28.1 degrees Celsius. Doctors worked for 2 hours to stabilize her. At one point, her pulse stopped. They brought it back. Then it stopped again. A nurse on duty that night recalled, "We got her heart going twice. The second time, she opened her eyes for just a moment. I thought we had her." Jade Mercer died at 6:22 in the morning on May 11th at Kathmandu Model Hospital. She never regained consciousness after leaving the mountain. The medical examiner listed the primary cause of death as high-altitude cerebral edema, compounded by severe hypothermia and cardiac arrest. Contributing factors included exhaustion, dehydration, and bilateral frostbite to both hands and feet. She had been exposed above 27,000 feet for 19 hours. She was 29 years old. Her mother identified her body that afternoon. The room was very quiet. The official investigation by Nepal's Department of Tourism took 11 days. The determination was unambiguous. Preventable fatality, deviation from established safety protocols, failure to follow guide instruction at multiple documented decision points. But the investigation did not stop there, and what it uncovered made people very angry. Summit Path Expeditions had received a formal weather advisory at 11:04 p.m. on the night of May 8th, less than 2 hours before Jade's team left Camp 4. The advisory came directly from the Himalayan Weather Service and flagged the deteriorating northwest system in precise detail. It recommended all teams delay summit pushes by a minimum of 36 hours. The company's base camp coordinator received it, logged it, and did not pass it to the climbing team. Internal records recovered during the investigation showed that Summit Path Expeditions had a company policy, unwritten but consistent, of withholding late weather advisories when teams were already staged at Camp 4. The reasoning, according to a former employee who spoke to investigators, was simple. Turning teams around from Camp 4 hurt their summit rate. Their summit rate was their marketing. Jade Mercer never knew the warning existed. Someone had the information that could have saved her life. They chose to keep it. Everest has claimed over 310 lives since 1953. 1 in every 60 climbers who attempts the mountain does not come home. The death zone above 26,000 feet has a documented mortality rate of 4%, and 90% of all Everest deaths occur on the descent, not the ascent. These are not secret numbers. They are printed in every expedition briefing packet that Summit Path Expeditions handed to their clients, including Jade. But statistics do not feel real when you have 1.2 million people waiting for your next post. The sunk cost of $68,000 in expedition fees does not feel real. The 2 years of training does not feel real. What feels real is the summit and the shot and the caption you already wrote in your head. Psychologists who study mountaineering fatalities call this summit fever, and they are careful to say it is not stupidity. It is human. It is the same mechanism that keeps people at a casino long after they should have left. The mountain does not care about the mechanism. Dorje Tamang gave a single statement to investigators before declining all further interviews. It read in full, "I told her on the first day. I told her on the last day. She smiled both times. I hope people remember that I tried. The Sherpas always knew. She just never once asked them why."